men have been taught not to feel any of the things that are hurting them. So they don't know when they're in a bad situation, a bad relationship, something that's really taxing them. And so
Mm-hmm.
their only outlet to feel anything is gambling, drugs, porn, alcohol, and then eventually, sadly,
Mm-hmm.
suicide. So how do we get to a point to do all these things to move into that adult male agency that you're alluding to, but also men can accept what their own needs are?
Well, it is a false paradigm of our modern culture that men can't cry, and and it drives me crazy, all this polarity talk around your inner feminine.
Right.
And
Oh, fuck.
it's like,
It drives me nuts. Oh,
what what would you take from men and call feminine? Compassion, self-care, empathy, emotions. That's not feminine.
yeah.
And how dare you try to pull that from men?
Yes.
It's simply not true.
I love your anger behind that, because I feel the same thing, and it's good to be able to express it with someone, because there's such a sadness in me through all the
Yeah.
research I've been doing for the book. I was talking about that, like, we take this from boys at such a young age that it should make everybody angry.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there. Oh gosh, I've studied mythology, history, indigenous cultures all around the world. There is always emotional discharge. There's always emotional either reintegration back into the tribe and humanity and being and sensitivity and vulnerability. It's included everywhere. That when the Spartans would go to war, they would call them. They ran farms. They were dads. They were they weren't just dudes with the little speedos and the cloaks that just fought all day.
Right.
And so when they called the Spartans up to go to war, they would. There's a little ritual before war where they would write their name on a stick, and then they would break the stick in half, and it was a metaphor or a ritual of death. Like, hey, we all gathered, there's our enemy, and I just died. And then I tie half the stick to my shield, and half the stick goes in the basket behind our lines. And then at that point, hoka, hey, today's a good day to die. Which means I don't have to be afraid and piss myself of what will happen to me or what I'm going to do, because it doesn't matter. I'm already dead. And so it's pretty easy to kick ass from that mindset. And that is the full claiming of the martial warrior aspect of masculinity. And it's valuable. It's why we're here on the planet, is that we had men who are willing to break the stick and go stab a bison for the tribe. And to stand at the mouth of the cave and tell the saber-toothed cat, you're not coming in. That's also a birthright of men, is to be able to armor up and do the things that other people are not willing or capable of doing. But at the end of the battle, they would put the sticks back together. And it was a way of not only tallying their losses, but it was a reintegration ritual. And at that point, the Spartans would shudder, and they would wail, and they would weep, because they were reborn and they got to go home. They were resurrected. And so there was weeping and wailing. And there's weeping and wailing at the end of every, battle or traumatic event, which is why the knights, would take their armor off at the church, and they would be given a robe, and they would write love letters and go on pilgrimages, and the samurai would take their armor off and do calligraphy and pottery and flower arranging. So
Right.
there is just battle tested reintegration rituals throughout history of men reclaiming their vulnerability, their emotions, their sensitivity, their empathy. So it is the legacy of men to do the hard things and also return home. And we're not taught any of that.
No, and it's just really refreshing for me to hear, because most people that you hear online or wherever that are talking about let men be men, men should be like this, men should be like that. I think these are people looking to exploit the idea of what they think a traditional man could be. Whereas I think as humans, our biggest trait, which has made us the most, apex predator on the planet, I think, is our adaptability. It's why we survive in cold cultures, warm cultures, rain, snow, all over the place. But for some reason, we seem to just let go of the idea that emotional adaptability is also part of it. Men and women can be in these sort of battle scenarios, under attack, protecting their children, etc. But then they also have the right to mourn. And if men don't go through that, like you said, I think reinitiation and coming out of that, well, then you don't need, I guess we all know from, you know way better than I would, working with veterans, like men that come home after being under fire and that stress for so long, you don't need a wartime tense mentality when you're at home with your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you armor up, you can't feel your children.
Right.
You can't feel yourself. You can't even enjoy a sunset through the slit of your visor. So, you're an armored thing, and we require our men to do armored things.
Sure.
Whether it's business or war or hunting or whatever that heavy adversity experience is, but we do have to take the armor off at some point, and the adaptability topic. Amongst our species, which is the ability to be versatile. That's driven by diversity of personality, diversity of the roles in the tribe. And so you don't have to be the guy who literally puts on armor to serve as a man. There are also, which is a warrior class. And 25% of the world is psychologically a warrior class man, and they want to compete, and they want results, and they want to serve. Like there's all these bigger dynamics, but there's also 25% of the world that are the opposite. They're healers. They're resiliency men. So they have a function within the tribe, which is still innately masculine, and those are the therapists, and they're the wounded healer or the servant leader, or we have different titles for this role.
Right.
And then we also have our magicians, our wise men, our shamans, and they have a very different battle that they're undertaking for the sake of the tribe, which is to provide wisdom and plan and understanding and mastery and efficiency. And that's a very different role. So there are roles within every tribal structure, and we are a tribal structure. So whatever hierarchy you choose to join, there is a journey up that hierarchy to provide greater service to your tribe.
Right.
And that hierarchy is not based on power; it's based on competence. So if you're a healer shaman person, be the very best one you can be. But all of those things deal with messy, uncomfortable, emotionally traumatizing experiences.
Okay.
And so resiliency runs through all of it. It's just a different form of resiliency.
Well, because this is another thought I've been really having, is that there's been so many studies now since the 70s. I spoke with the psychologist from the APA who founded the Man and Masculinities Department, and what he's saying is that anytime you study men, the ones that are more likely to believe in this idea of traditional masculinity, they are more prone to violence. They're more prone to self-harm. They have worse mental health outcomes. Oh, sorry. Someone just calling. They have worse mental health outcomes. And so the concept that we are trying to put all of the men on the planet into the warrior class, I think is exactly what is causing the problem. And because there are so many different types of men, like gay men are men that want to like you said, be healers, be resilience people. Like there are so many different types of men. Artists.
Yeah.
On top of this, and I think we could also have the warrior class that comes back from war, and when there is no battle to be fought, is the best pottery instructor or teacher in the village. And I think the detriment we're doing to boys is to tell them they have to be one specific thing, instead of, like you said, being like all men are a tribe, and the healers will help the warriors when they come back. The warriors will protect the healers. And these are the things that I think we lose as a tribe, and it just makes everyone a fake warrior, pretending that they're bigger warriors, and it makes us fight amongst ourselves and not accept ourselves.